You're listening to the PRO Media Network, the next level in entertainment.
Get ready. It's time for the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. Telling you everything you need to know about the Saints, Pelicans, and a whole lot more.
Welcome. You're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. And we have intense, entertaining, educating, and enlightening sport talk from your favorite sports family. I'm Big Q. This is podcast 352 on the Sports Coma. That's right, episode 352 on the Coma, man. For those who don't know, we are the number one independent Saints podcast in the land, man, covering all things black and gold, man. This is a podcast dedicated to all the true Who Dat Nation, the black and gold mafia, and the true Saints fans across the hemisphere, across the globe, across the flat plane, whatever you subscribe to, we are here. Sports Coma here to serve you. Podcast 352 coming at you. And on this podcast, man, we got a lot to cover. We're going to talk about draft stuff, man. The Saints prepare for the draft is the title of this one. And the Saints preparing, man, they have a lot lining up for them. Of course, dealing with the draft this year, the Saints, of course, did give up first round draft pick to get and plus other things to acquire Marcus Davenport in the previous draft from last year. They have big love for Davenport and high hopes that he plays a full season and be able to stackpile some sacks on the other side of the defensive line to kind of alleviate the pressure off of our top dog, Cam Jordan. But the Saints, man, they're optimistic as usual. And we'll cover that today in podcast 352. We'll talk about the Saints draft. We'll go over comments. We'll actually play some interviews here. We got Coach Sean Payton chiming in on his thoughts on the upcoming draft. We have Vice President of actually the General Manager as well, Mickey Loomis, chiming in with his thoughts on the draft and just ideas on the team in general. Also read a few comments and we'll break down some stats and depth chart and really look at the team. You know, because remember last year the Saints had this draft where they drafted all these really good players, but for some kind of way they found out not to have really any of them on them. Ultimately, it turned out they really needed some of those guys, like some of those defensive backs, like Kareem Moore and, you know, and Natrell Jameson. Remember those guys that were good enough? Really, a lot of stuff out of college, but they just some kind of way didn't make the team. It be, you know, that's the Sports Coma question of the day, fam. Let me see how I should phrase this one coming at you, because do the Saints really need all these draft picks? That's another thing, man. Now people was hit me with the questions about Q. You think they're gonna move up? You think they'll move back? Idealistically speaking, you know, they can go either or because it's so unpredictable. But commonsensical, man, wise, you would think that the Saints will probably trade back into the draft to accrue picks if that's the case, or they can move up to get a player that they need. But the Saints really don't have that many needs to fulfill on the team, right? Right? Well, we're going to look at some statistics, man, and see if that kind of backs. We'll see exactly where the Saints, from a statistical standpoint, where they need to improve the team. We'll go over that today in the podcast as well. So without further ado, let's get in podcast 352. Now, of course, Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis took to the airwaves as the media crowded around them for the upcoming NFL drafts coming up this Thursday. But, of course, the Saints don't have a first-round draft pick. Like I said, they traded away for Davenport. They don't have a third-round pick. They gave it up to the Jets for Bridgewater. They don't have a fourth-round selection. They gave it up to the Giants for Eli Apple. Those seem like pretty good moves, right? Davenport is ultimately right now the starting defensive end opposite of Cam Jordan. Teddy Bridgewater re-signed with the team on a one-year deal as the possible heir apparent to Drew Brees. So you kind of solve the quarterback issue. They can extend him out long term. Then the other one is Eli Apple. Now, of course, Eli Apple, the jury is still out on Eli. I personally like Eli Apple. I think he probably is the best cornerback that they have on their roster, not named Matt Lattimore, to be honest with you. I think the guy has an opportunity to really improve. Swade and a lot of other guys don't think so. They think that Eli Apple's not so good, but I beg to differ. I think Eli Apple's a pretty good cornerback. You know, it'll take a little bit for him to get kind of acclimated to the Saints. He did pretty well in the season. Later, you know, as the season progressed, he played a little bit better. But just imagine Eli Apple submerged in the full cornerback room, learning all of the plays and getting a full camp with the Saints. You can imagine this guy who came basically in half the season could really help the team going forward as he gets really more familiar with the concepts and the schemes of what they're asking him to do. Not to mention one of the key things that the Saints gain back in the secondary is the fact that they get P-Rob back, hopefully. You know, we haven't heard too much about it, but from what some of the few reports we've been getting on Patrick Robinson is the fact that he's expecting 100% return and will be ready for camp. So that is good news as well as far as the secondary is concerned with the Saints. So we're going to cover that in today's show. So before we get into any more statistics, let's play any more topics. Let's play something by Sean Payton. Let's hear what the coach had to say about the upcoming draft, man. A lot of interesting points he pointed out here. So let's hear what Coach Payton has to say. Here
How
you go.
excited are you for the draft to get going?
You know, it's that time of the year. Obviously, for us, it's always important as we look at the incoming draft class. It's also the first week our players are in town. We started our off-season program this week, a week later than most. And, so there's a lot going on. Kind of went through the board again today, the early portions of the board. Our first pick isn't until later in the second round. But our scouts, our coaches, everyone, Jeff, Mickey, it feels like we've been meeting a long time. So we're excited. When you get 62 players out, a lot can happen, but we feel comfortable that there's going to be a good football player, hopefully someone that we feel like can help us, sooner than later. And if you really went back, you look at 06 in the second round, we backed up and drafted Roman Harper. In the fourth round, we were ready to make a pick, and then we backed up and drafted Jari Evans. And so we're not adverse to either, but a lot of it has to do specifically with a player that you might feel his value's dropping some, or a player maybe that you feel like you can get if you do back up. So I think we're open to both, and the key is having a good vision for who you're drafting. Like, how do you see them fitting in, and how do you see them helping your roster? You go back to the trade a year ago, and it's hard to measure the value of that trade until you complete the second year, and then now it would have been pick 29-30. We were real pleased with the ability for us to get up and get Marcus. I think that's just part of it. Each year you might be with multiple picks in a round, or maybe you don't have a pick in a round. It's more noticeable to the public when the first round pick's not there, because look, we spent 90% of our time discussing the first round, and yet our scouts, everyone knows in this process, the key to having a good draft is finding players in these other rounds, which we've been able to do, and hopefully we can do that beginning Friday.
Sean, do you get anxious as this week gets here, as you get closer to the start of the draft, even though you don't have the first round pick this year?
I don't know. Excited would be a better word, not anxious. Anxious would be more of a word, like before you play a game. But no, there's a lot of work that goes into the reports. There's a lot of work that scouts and coaches, everyone that's taken the film out, gone to a campus workout, gone to the combine, and maybe seen a player 4 different times, and then taking a pen to a paper or on the computer, filling in what they think that player can be for us. So I think for all those people that spend time on that, it's a pretty tedious process, and and yet I think it's an exciting time because you're adding to your team. We'll have this discussion. I'm a player in this draft, and I can make this team. I think that you're always looking for depth at offensive line. Kicking game is the first spot to a roster. So, a linebacker that can play in the kicking game. Just hopefully for us good football players that we have the right vision for, regardless of position. It's a good question. Look, we're going to be looking to see who gives us, sub-rush ability. Whether it's at the end, tackle position defensively, who gives us some, what player can come in maybe. I heard Zach yesterday talking in the evening hour about, a guy that maybe can back up a tackle. We'll have some guys competing at that position, but we're going to try to look at the right guys that we feel like at least fit a vision, and then let everything else take care of itself. It's kind of hard to predict until you see the players that fall. If you move forward, what realistically would take place, and you're not going to move from 62 into 10, 15, or any of that. Are you interested in moving to 31 maybe? It would just be specific to a player. But I think the plan would be to go in, and certainly as we arrive for the first day of the draft, we're arriving knowing it's only one round, but nonetheless, we're putting our suits on.
That's Coach Sean Payton chiming in on his thoughts on the draft, man. It's a mouth said by the coach, always honest and open as usual on most matters. Well, I mean, of course, when it come down to interview dealing with games, of course, Sean Payton can be as milquetoast as many, but he's vanilla for a purpose. I won't give out too much, but a lot of insight on this draft. Of course, movement up or down, players that might be interested. He mentioned the kicking game, special teams, linebacker that'll help them, but they have a lot of really solid special teams people. Craig Robinson, Vince Bigel. They just picked up Marcus Shrells as a kick returner, punt returner. That was something that eluded them for years. Tommy Lee Lewis did a decent job back there, but just, never broke one. Never had, multiple kick returns or punt returns for touchdowns. Elvin Kamara was being used in that capacity. But when you actually go over and look at some of the statistics dealing with the Saints from the offensive, we look at it from offensive standpoint as well, and defensive, we'll get into it. But the team, third overall scoring points in the NFL, third in all of the NFL. Total yards, they were 8th with 379.2. Passing yards, 12th. Usually the Saints are a top 10 team passing yards, but that was kind of taken back because of the fact that they were really one-dimensional in the passing game, and of course most people understand why Mike Thomas was the man. The Saints and Breeze went to Mike Thomas a lot, and not a compliment to Mike Thomas, and that's a shame because if he had a compliment, a more balanced, the Saints could have been inside of the top 10 like they usually do, but 12th with the passing game at 252.6, and then the rushing game was top 6 with 126.6. Now I can tell you that I think that trend will continue as well if, when they add in Murray to the system. You're looking at what Mark Ingram gave him last year, 138 carries for 645 yards, 6 touchdowns. You don't think Murray could do that? I would say I think he can do that. If the man's healthy, I think he can give you 600 and some yards and 6 touchdowns a game very well. I think he can have more. I think the guy can give you 8 to 10 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns a year because he's a battering ram in the red zone. Before we even get to the running game, I think some of the things that we look at the passing game, as I was speaking about, what one of these things here, as far as the rosters, that you could look at and say, where's a real opening for? Where do the Saints really need help? They need help they need a complimentary wide receiver to Michael Thomas. And you say, well, it's cute. They did that. Remember they drafted Traquan Smith from Central Florida. He's supposed to be this big guy, do all this stuff. Well, in his rookie year, he looked slow and uncomfortable. He looked scared, looked like the game was bigger than him. Remember those multiple podcasts I did covering the game? If you hadn't heard them, go back and listen to the podcast. We was giving some really good commentary on it, and nobody was really talking like that, man. But that's how we are at the Sports Coma. But Traquan finished the year 28 catches for 427 yards. He had that one monster game. Remember that? Against the Redskins. Was pretty good. He averaged about 15 yards a catch. Had that longest catch was a 62-yarder. But Traquan had 5 touchdowns that year. So not too much 28 catches for what he was a third round wide receiver. I guess that's not too good. I mean, you want something north of 40, right? 40 catches a year to be considered decent. But the top compliment in terms of the reception game to the 125 catches that Michael Thomas had. Michael Thomas, 1,405 yards, 9 touchdowns on a year. Outstanding year for Mike Thomas. Elvin Kamara was the second highest receiver, 81 catches, 709, and 4 touchdowns. He's a running back. He's a starting running back for you. So, you know, I get where you're going right there, but they really needed a compliment. So in comes Jared Cook. You say, well, Q, that's why they got Cook, to kind of give them that game, because the third highest catcher of the ball for the Saints the past year was Benjamin Watson, 35 catches for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Ben, by the way, says he wants to come back after his twins are born. He wants to play again. Is there room here for New Orleans? There's always room here for Ben Watson, man. He can come back for a third time. If Ben Watson went, then came back, then why not come back again? He's not going to cost that much money. I just want to throw my 2 cents in there. But the wide receiver game, they need a steady compliment. Then you talk about guys like Traquan Smith. I gave you his numbers. Ted Ginn Jr. was hurt for majority of the year. Came in, had 17 catches for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is the deep threat, and Ted Ginn does a lot of good things. If healthy, he can give them that balance. Remember the year before when Ted Ginn was healthy, what he really meant to the Saints offense, stretching the field, catching the deep ball, taking the top off of defense. When he was there, he was effective. Now, it's going to be a couple years since he had that, had a decent year, and he's getting up in age. So what's the answer there? Do you address it in the draft? Do you get one of these fantastic wide receivers that might fall to you in the draft when you just took a guy in the third round? Or do you just rely on what you got? Keith Kirkwood and all these other guys, do you give them more experience? It's going to be a really difficult decision for them to make. Wide receiver, I've seen a lot of mock drafts saying wide receiver. Pass rusher and wide receiver, 2 of the favorites, because pass rush, you can never have too many pass rushers. But y'all guys chime in the comment section. Tell me what you think about wide receiver. Do you need a compliment there, or do we just need to be patient with what we have? We have a healthy Ted Ginn Jr. and bring along Traquan Smith, who should show improvement in his second year. And, of course, keep Kirkwood more snaps in the game. Of course, add another wide receiver into the mix. The Saints always do. They always bring an undrafted guy in or a jewel in the rough that they find some kind of way. Lance Moore, a la Lance Moore, and the rest of them undrafted guys. Saints specialize in that sort of thing. So, tell me what you think about that, fam. Do you think that they need to just be a little bit more patient with what we got here, because wide receiver is definitely compliment to Mike Thomas is definitely a thing. Of course, Mickey Loomis, who's coming up next, talked about Mike Thomas, and some other stuff. We'll play that on the other side of the break. But we're going to get into more Saints news, notes, and comments covering the draft. Like I said, Mickey Loomis, we got an extended interview we're going to play. Ain't going to play all of it. We're going to play a lot of Mickey Loomis' thoughts on the upcoming draft as the Saints prepare for the 2019 NFL draft. They don't have that many picks. 2nd, 5th, 2, 6, and the 7th. Do they drop? Do they trade back? Do they trade up? What you think? Y'all put it in the comment section. But we'll finish talking about the Saints draft on the other side of the break. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. Stay with us.
Saints and Pelicans fan, so the only podcast I can get my fix is the Sports Coma with Big Q. The guy's intense, funny, and they always keep it real.
Check out the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys.
Embrace Pet Insurance is more than just pet insurance. Embrace Pet Insurance promises to provide genuine support and certainty when your pet needs it the most.
with personalized accident and illness policies, compassionate customer care, 24/7 access to veterinary professionals, flexible wellness plans, timely claims processing, and online customer portals. Their values is what makes them embrace. So, when selecting a pet insurance company as a partner in your pet's care, you deserve a company that has your pet's best interests at heart. Get top-rated and reviewed coverage for your pet today. Up to 90% back on bills at any vet, total protection, pet insurance, and wellness, and dependable claims payments. Get the top-rated and reviewed coverage for your pet today. Go to EmbracePetInsurance.com. That's EmbracePetInsurance.com. Check the link in the description section below.
Are you a boxing fan? Check out Ring Kings Boxing only on the PRO Media Network.
Sports fans are gearing up and saving big at Fanatics.com, the world's largest collection of officially licensed fan gear. From all the leagues, teams, and players you love, unique one-of-a-kind designs exclusively by Fanatics, and autographed collectibles from today's biggest stars shipped directly to your home. Join Fanatics Rewards for free to earn fan cash on every purchase. Shop now and for a limited time, get 20% off all orders. Fanatics.com, officially licensed everything.
Hit the link below and rep the black and gold today. Who that?
Do you need a domain name? How about a host for your website that can work with WordPress? Try Namecheap.com. They make registering, hosting, and managing domain names for yourself or others easy and affordable because the internet needs people. Namecheap is an ICANN accredited domain register and technology company founded in 2000. It's one of the fastest growing American companies according to the 2018 Inc. 5000. Celebrating nearly 2 decades of providing unparalleled levels of service, security, and support. Namecheap has been steadfast in customer satisfaction with over 10 million domains under management. Namecheap is among the top domain registrars and web providers in the world. They offer a full selection of popular and unique domains along with fully featured hosting packages, SSL security certificates, WhoisGuard privacy protections, and more, all at the lowest prices in the industry. So if you need a domain name or hosting or anything else, think Namecheap.com. That's right, Namecheap.com. Check the description section below for link.
Follow the Sports Coma on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
Welcome back to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. We talking about the Saints preparing for the draft 2019 draft. They don't have a first round pick. That became Marcus Davenport from a year ago. We all know this. So what do the Saints do, man? Did they stand pat or trade up, trade back, get more picks? Do the Saints even need more picks? Remember what they did with the picks from last year when they drafted all those guys? Less than half the guys made the team. Rick Leonard didn't make the team. He was better than Nate Wozniak. I talked to him in the airport about that. I'm like, how the hell they kept Nate Wozniak, a converted tight end, as an offensive lineman, but let you go, and you came in as a 4th round selection out of Florida State? You know, he was a humble dude. But anyway, it's weird to me, man. You know, the Saints, Rick Leonard is on the practice squad with the Houston Texans. Natrell Jameson, I believe, is with the Giants. Or is it Kareem Moore? These guys are elsewhere is what I'm saying. They're not on this team, they're elsewhere. So my point is, do the Saints really need all these damn draft picks? Are they going to act like what they did last year? Like Leonard told me, if you can't help Sean win this year, he don't need you. It's crazy to me, But maybe you can flip them into something. You can find a pass rusher that can help you. Maybe a run-stuffing defensive end. Maybe an offensive lineman that can come in and replace some guys that might you don't have to pay that much money for. It's a cheap man's route, effectively, of building up your team depth-wise, so you don't have all these expensive contracts. And to the Saints' credit, they've done a really good job of doing that. They really do need to address the 6th offensive lineman. It's another issue. Of course, that hasn't been solved since Senio Calamente left to Houston. Of course, they brought in Michael Ola and Derek Newton, Cam's brother, and a few other players to try to kind of put that together. Saints really need to find that sixth offensive lineman, a guy that can play the guard or tackle position, that can fill in for Teron Armstead when he eventually gets hurt. I hate to say that, man. You know what I'm saying? I love Teron Armstead, but I'm just going to be honest with you, man. That's pretty much what it is you're a big guy, and he has knees and feet problems. And to be honest with you, that don't go away if you're a big guy. The guy's 6'7", 300-plus pounds with knee and feet and foot problems. That's not a good thing at all. But you're going to need depth behind a Teron Armstead or Andrews Pete, so to speak, because what happens with Pete? Do the Saints re-up all that big cake to keep Andrews Pete there, or do they go in another direction? These are things that this draft might answer, you know. But anyway, before we get into any more conversation about that, let's listen to what the general manager of the New Orleans Saints had to say about the upcoming draft and more. Here's Mickey Loomis.
Like free agency allowed you to put yourselves in position to pick the best available?
I think for the most part, yes. That's always our goal. Is to, we have a list of items that we want to get accomplished in the off season, and I think for the most part we did that. We'll go into this draft, and it's a little different when you don't have that first round pick. We're picking at 62, so it's a lot tougher to predict who's going to be available to you. But I like the position we're in.
Back to the schedule real quick. You guys have lost the week 1 5 years in a row. What, if anything?
I didn't realize that till you reminded me.
I would apologize. What, if anything, can you do this offseason to ensure that you start fast?
Well, look, I think, we're always focused on starting fast, and we've had some teams that have played good games against us as much as anything. So, we got a home game against a really tough opponent, Monday Night Football, and, we've had success, in those primetime games, so hopefully we'll have success this year.
You've used future picks to make deals several times in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
What's the challenge in presenting that to a team? Because obviously it doesn't necessarily help them right away. And just the challenge of maybe trying to use that to possibly move up in the draft.
Well, look, I think, you're always, when you're trying to move up, you're making a lot of calls, looking for a trade partner that views accumulating picks more valuable than making their pick that year. And so it's just a matter of making a lot of calls and relying on relationships that you have. And, we've been able to find trade partners on occasion, but there's been times when we haven't been able to as well.
How much of that is done in these few days leading up to the draft to find maybe people who might be, or is all of that done sort of on the fly as you go? Because I'm imagining by the time you hit the third round and you got 5 minutes, it gets a little tough to squeeze that in. Right?
Yeah, I think that for the most part, we do a lot of preliminary work, in the days leading up to the draft, talking to teams and who's interested in moving. And look, again, day one's the first round. So the days leading up to that, you're really primarily talking about first round, movement. And then after the first round, the next day, you're talking about that day's rounds. So a lot of it is done preliminary, but man, when you get on a clock, a lot of it's done then too. So it's both. At the end of the day, it's both.
How many times would you say maybe of the times that you've tried to move up, how many times, or as much as you try, are you just not? I'm guessing sometimes you're just not able to pull it off, even when you really want to.
Yeah.
How does that sort of play out? Are you most of the time able to do it when you want to move up, or?
It's less than 50%. It's been less than 50%. Because look, you may have a trade partner, and yet you don't see the value as eye to eye. So, I'd say it's less than 50%. I don't know that I could put a number on it, but it's probably not far from 50%, but it's less than 50%.
Is that genuinely guided by
That's just my experience and our experience. It's not, I wouldn't say it's league wide.
Is that generally guided by a guy like Kamara's out there and he shouldn't be out there?
Yeah.
Let's go get him. I mean, it's always.
Yeah, I think it's always guided by a targeted player. It is for us.
When you look at this draft in particular, is 62 kind of line up to where there's a confident you'll find somebody you like there? Like, is there kind of like this big range of prospects you feel?
I think I think our view is it's a fairly deep draft, and we're pretty confident that we're going to get a good player at 62. Yes.
Given that you have been aggressive with your history here and moving up, is it going to be restless on Thursday night?
Probably.
I just didn't know. Do you prepare differently to kind of wrap your head around it mentally in a different way, knowing that the potential is the night will come and go and there'll be no new players?
Yeah, potentially. We'll see when we get there, but it's pretty hard to go from 62 into the first round, but we'll see what happens.
What do you expect Thursday to move up even into the second round, in the middle of the top? You probably have to go into next year.
I don't know yet. We'll see what. Because look, you can trade picks and you can trade players too. I mean, there's all kinds of avenues, not all kinds. There's a few avenues to make movement. But again, that we're going to have to see somebody that we've got a target on, and that we feel like we have to move in order to even contemplate that. But look, the honest truth is we've got less ammunition, less things to trade this year than we've had in the past. So that makes it a lot more difficult. Yeah, I think, I was just visiting with Jeff this morning about that. We were talking about our views on it, and I think that, there's some pass rushers in this draft, probably more than what we ordinarily experience. I think the tight end group is pretty deep. Quarterbacks, I think, is a deep group. So I think those three, but, there's other positions. You can find wide receivers, I think, in this class as well. So, I think in general we feel like it's a pretty deep draft.
There's a notion that you guys don't like to trade back in rounds. Is that accurate? You guys have always traded up?
Well, I think the notion comes from history, right? So, I wouldn't say that we don't have we'd be open to trading back to get, if the timing's right and if the value's right, but it just hasn't happened very often.
That's Mickey Loomis, general manager of general manager of the New Orleans Hornets. I mean, New Orleans Hornets. I'm saying New Orleans Saints. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. But he was talking about a barrier of different topics. The reporters have one-track mind, don't they? Trade up, trade back. I don't know, man. The Saints do have a limited amount of picks. And it's kind of a mixed bag if you look at it. Remember all those guys? They had some really solid draft picks last year. I like the two defensive backs they drafted. For whatever reason, they didn't make the team. And I thought they had more upside than a guy like a Ken Crawley. More upside. Natrell Jameson was a guy that could actually help you in a kick return, punt return game. He's very fast. Saints didn't see it. Remember Bo Scott from Louisiana Tech? That guy, he was on the practice squad for most of the season, and Philly just came and plucked him off of there. So Saints couldn't find a spot on the active roster for a guy like him, who can also help you in the special teams, kind of a scat back mode. Very unique. The Saints got rid of guys like Rick Leonard. They could really have used a guy like Rick Leonard at the tackle position. He was kind of raw, but he was coming around, At least he got on the field. You can't say that about Wozniak and the rest of those guys. And you look at Will Clapp, who's a 7th-round draft pick. The Saints he made the team and played a little bit. So it's a mixed bag, Hard to call it. But anyway, you heard Mickey Loomis. He also talked about other stuff. If I play a little further, he made comments about Davenport and them expecting a big season from Davenport. His only injury issue is injuries. He has to stay healthy to make a solid and immediate impact on the team. He had some toe issues and ankle wrist issues and all kind of stuff. I remember when they drafted him, they said, when he first got drafted, he had issues too. So he was dealing with injuries the entire damn year. Just sad. Hopefully he can be a lot healthier coming into next year. Now the Saints looking at the defensive side of the ball, improvement on the defensive side of the ball. They allowed 22 points a game total in defense. It's good for 4th, middle of the pack in the NFL, 14th. Now, of course, total yards, they allowed 349, almost 350, middle of the pack in the NFL. So it's improvement need to be made there. Passing yardage is allowed, which is the secondary, 268.9. So you might as well say it's 269 yards a game against the secondary. That's 29th in the NFL. So way back of the back of the back. Then, of course, against the rush, the Saints was top. Only one team better than them, and at that, they were 80.2 and shutting you down in the rush. That was totally awesome. Now, of course, they lose Tyler Davidson to the hated Atlanta Falcons. Alex Okafor took a big payday to go to Kansas City to play with them, and they just got Frank Clark from Seattle today. So Kansas City trying to stack power pass rushers. So the Saints missing out on Tyler Davidson. They're missing out on Okafor, but they get big Malcolm Brown. But remember, they've been trying to get rid of Tyler Davidson, if you think about it. Remember the previous year? They tried to get Ndamukong Suh, remember that? And prior to that, they tried to get big, what was his name? Muhammad Wilkinson, remember that? Wilkinson turned the Saints down, both him and Jimmy Graham, to go to Green Bay. And ultimately, it turned out to not to be so good because he ended up getting hurt up there. And Ndamukong Suh ended up going to the Los Angeles Rams. They went to the Super Bowl because of a cheat. Anyway, you know how it goes. But there is room to be made on the defensive side of the ball. So getting Malcolm Brown and help there on the defensive side of the ball could ultimately help the defensive line keep that second rank. Well, you had Demario Davis. That was a major part of that as well. A healthy Alex Anzalone. And the rest of those guys were able to hold up and play pretty well for the Saints defense on that end. So improvement needs to be. Right now, as it stands, Davenport is the starting end opposite of Cam Jordan. Malcolm Brown in the middle. And then, of course, you look at Sheldon Rankins, who's Sean Payton already said he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. So we missing a minus there. Do you address that in the draft? Do you get you a big defensive tackle to kind of sit there, kind of fill in for Sheldon Rankins? If one falls to you, perhaps, do you go up and get one? That kind of stuff I'm looking at. If you're looking at improving the defense, do you go after a secondary player? Do you get you a cornerback with that second-round pick? Do you move up and snatch a really impactful cornerback, somebody you've been looking for, because got Eli Apple on the 5th-year deal, on his 5th-year rookie year deal, his 5th rookie year. So him and Sheldon Rankins, by the way, they have that 5th year on their rookie contract. So we'll find out whether or not the Saints see him as a person that they want to keep around. So a lot of questions, more questions than answer. But answers will come when the draft gets closer and closer and closer. So outside of that, like we said, we covered some of the stuff. We talk about the Saints and look at some of their depth chart. You look at the depth chart, of course, the Saints have on the offensive side, of course, Drew's the quarterback. You have wide receivers, Mike Thomas, and of course, it's Ted Ginn Jr., and, of course, Traquan Smith. Traquan Smith really has to step up because the question marks, the kid has the talent. He can play. It just seemed like the game was bigger than him this year, in his mind anyway. His stiffness and just wasn't confidence in his style of play. You know what I'm saying? Talk to me, Who Dat Nation. Y'all see the same thing I'm saying? Comment in the section, comment in the comment section. Let me know how y'all felt about that as well, because that's how I felt about Traquan, watching him. Look kind of timid in some games, scared. Looked like he was the game was bigger than him versus Keith Kirkwood, who looked totally relaxed. Kirkwood was out there running around. It's football. I'm going to make it happen. It was a total difference versus an undrafted guy and a guy that was taken in the 3rd round. Offensive line, man. The tight end position, or then offensive line. Tight end position, the Saints get the best tight end in free agency with Jared Cook. That was a solid move. They didn't read up with Josh Hill, giving him a 3-year deal. So you have Cook and Hill. And, of course, you could use a tight end behind him because I'm pissed off with Dan Arnold. Why? Because he dropped the freaking touchdown in the NFC Championship game, and we wouldn't even be talking about Courtney Roby's bull crap if Dan Arnold would have caught the damn ball. Touchdown. I don't care if he's an undrafted rookie or what have you. That's no excuse. If you're collecting a goddamn check, you're getting paid to catch the football, should have caught the damn ball, man. We'd have been playing at the Super Bowl. Probably would have took apart old man Tom Brady and Belichick. But that's how it rolled. But tight end is a position the Saints definitely have to address. Big ups to Gary Griffin, who listens to the show as well. So he played really well in the game. Too bad they gave Arnold more minutes than he did. And you look at the offensive line. Offensive line to me looks solid. Easton's a question mark. Hadn't seen enough of him. He was hurt last year. I don't know about Easton. Just be honest with you. I seen some footage when he was healthy. Nothing stood out. Pretty basic offensive lineman. Nothing outstanding. But, you know, the Saints have a really unique ability to take average-looking offensive linemen and make them look good. Example, Jonathan Goodwin. When Jonathan Goodwin came to the Saints, like, who was this guy? Career backup. Guy never could catch on anybody. The Saints put that guy, plugged him in, and he went right away. He was really good. You know, you had a guy like Jeff Fain. You remember Charles Bentley was here, then he left. Then Jeff Fain was here. And Jeff Fain turned into be a solid center for him. So the Saints have been blessed to have some really solid centers over the last several years or so. Very solid center play. Easton fits behind Unger. Can he pick it up? Only time will tell, baby. You know, hopefully with the Saints track record of putting together centers, it should be seamless, plug and play, right? We just have to keep an eye on it. And, of course, the running back position. So we said at running back, Elvin Kamara, and then you have, of course, Latavius Murray, Dwayne Washington, who looked pretty good last year. My thing is this, with the running back situation. If I was the Saints, I would try to get me a running back, like another running back. Because you know how the system is kind of built around Elvin Kamara, right? If Elvin Kamara gets hurt, God forbid, if something happens to Elvin Kamara, your whole offense looks different without Elvin Kamara, because they ask him to do so much, right? So much. If Elvin Kamara gets hurt, that offense kind of changes in a major deal. So I know you can't find an Elvin Kamara clone, but maybe perhaps you can draft a guy with a similar skill set as Elvin Kamara. You know what I'm saying? You know, there are a lot of great running backs out there that's going to be available. And, you know, Mike Weber out of Ohio State, many mock drafts putting him with the Saints because Saints love Ohio State guys. But how about Benny Snell out of Kentucky? I like Benny Snell. You know, he can do a lot of different things. You know, perhaps I like him. But the Saints really do need to look at a multi-purpose back, a guy that could provide like depth in case something happened to Elvin Kamara. Because, like I said, if Kamara gets hurt, the whole offense looks different without Elvin Kamara. Then we just have to go into a battering ram style offense with Latavius Murray, correct? I mean, I'm just saying you have to prepare for these things to happen. Just like we have to prepare for when Armstead eventually is going to get hurt. You got to prepare for what happens in that case. Like I said, hopefully he don't get hurt. But just in case, you always should have like that multi-purpose guy behind him. Tell me what y'all think on that as well. Then you look at the defense. You got Cam, you got Sheldon Rankins, Malcolm Brown, and Davenport. We know Rankins is not going to be there. The Saints did bring in Mario Edwards Jr., who could play in and defensive tackle. So I'm thinking he'll be more defensive tackle. You got David Onyemata facing that little weed deal he had to go on. So it might be a game, maybe a fine. We don't know, haven't heard anything. And of course, Trey Hendrickson, who I like Trey Hendrickson, but he's always hurt. You know, he hasn't really had an impact, and he can't stay healthy. So, you know, time will tell on him. But Taylor Stallworth has been solid as well. So maybe the Saints can use a draft pick there, or possibly bring back a guy like Jay Bromley or somebody that can help in absence of a guy like Sheldon Rankins, you know, because they're going to need him. Onyemata can fit in, you know what I'm saying? But what's his case? Is it a fine, or is he going to, you know what I'm saying, is he going to face a fine or suspension? So interesting on the defensive line, see exactly what the Saints going to do here. So they have the draft picks to address it. Maybe they go up for a player. Maybe they select somebody with the second, and maybe take some picks and packages and kind of move up. A lot of stuff. And then, of course, you go into the secondary. Eli Apple, Marshawn Lattimore, Von Bell, Mike Williams, and, of course, the third safety is what they're looking at. You know, that's a major issue to me. Chris Banjo, is he the answer? JT Gray, Ricky Jefferson, who's coming back off injury. I don't know if those guys are the answer. Perhaps the Saints could use that second round pick on a safety that can play a little corner, perhaps, that can, you know, kind of a roundabout safety, you know, they could definitely use it because they love that 3 safety set. So a lot of questions, man. Y'all tell me what y'all think about what the Saints are gonna do with these picks. Of course, we'll see in a few days on Friday hit the Saints second round pick. Will they move up into the first round? Man, we don't know, man. We're gonna keep attuned to it. So, but thank y'all for listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q. If you like the show, subscribe, comment, and share. And remember to support our supporters, our sponsors. You know. So I'm Big Q. Thank y'all for joining us on today's show. From me and the crew here, peace.
Forget ESPN or Fox. Get straight sports talk from the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys.
Thank you for listening to the Pro Media Network, who provides hours and hours of free edutainment to you and yours. If you are benefiting positively from our content, please donate to help us grow our platform by going to www.patreon.com/the Pro Media Network. That's www.patreon.com/the Pro Media Network, and support the true independent artists.
Are you a Pelicans fan? Check out the Pelican postgame report on the PRO Media Network.
The Kleins family has been getting people to go nuts for old nuts since 1995. As legends have it, a number of the Kleins friends who heard the idea said you can go nuts trying to name a store like that. In the excitement, the Kleins thought their friends said old nuts instead of go nuts and proceeded to throw caution to the wind. Old Nuts has over 2,000 items, bulk and wholesale prices of a whole lot of your favorite fruits, nuts, and confections, a selection of gift baskets for any budget, any occasion, and provides one of the best and impressively rated shopping experiences on the web. Fact is, between their selection, service, speed, or their online presence in the virtual mirror retail experience, they have developed an enviable client base that's comprised of personal and professional customers who count on their remarkable range of gift baskets. Think of gift basket, think about Old Nuts. Check them out, oldnuts.com. Check the link in the description section below. Go to newfrog.com for all of your electronic gadget needs. Fast becoming #1 online seller of cell phone and accessories, consumer electronics, automobiles and motorcycles, home and garden items, 5D diamond painting crafts, electrical and tool supplies, computer and networking supplies, lights and lighting supplies, sports and travel items, toys and hobby supplies, apparel and accessory, mother and kid items, health and beauty items, and much, much more. Newfrog.com has up to 70% off on some products. And you can check out their weekly promotions for all the best deals. Remember, when thinking online electronics and gadgets, think New Frog. Newfrog.com. Check the link in the description section below. Tea is your escape. It's your opportunity to create a moment for stillness, for reflection, for yourself. It's your connection to a world of senses, flavors both exotic and familiar, energizing and relaxing. It's your retreat from an increasingly turbulent world. It's the perfect paradox of simplicity and complexity. Teabox.com connects tea to people, uniting the richest flavors of the finest teas with the curious, the cultivated, and the adventurous all over the world. The freshest tea you've ever tasted, from crop to cup. There's simply no simpler way to experience the wonderful complexity of tea. Teabox, packing up the freshness. Tea thrives on freshness, and so do they. Teabox temperature and humidity control facility ensure that tea is maintained. The teas themselves go into oblique bags with aluminum layers that protect them from excess moisture. And like with Tea Box, shopping for fresh, loose leaf tea is easy because you make an informed purchase. You know exactly where your tea is coming from. So for the freshest teas in the world, check out teabox.com. That's right, teabox.com. Check the link in the description section below.
In today's world, children are bombarded with negativity on television, online, and at school. Our kids need to have a positive outlook on life and the world around them. I want to share with you a valuable resource you can use to bring positivity into your child's life. It's the new book, 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image, from author and dad, G.J. Barabino. This is a simple guide loaded with wonderful and inspirational affirmations designed to uplift young people's spirits. This positive and powerful children affirmational is chock full and loaded with wonderful inspirational sayings that will lift your child's self-image to whole new levels through the awesome power of spoken word. 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image, from author and dad, G.J. Barabino. Available on Amazon. Order a copy for yourself, your child's teachers, or anyone you know with children. 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image. Order your copy today.